Alright, tubelings, let's talk about... Holy crap, that's loud. Yeah, loud noise. Let's talk about that. Firearms and stuff. One funny thing about movies and video games is that a lot of the action heroes and characters would have to be deaf, or at least half deaf. At least struggle with some severe hearing loss. Why? Because they are surrounded by gunfire, explosions everywhere, all kinds of really loud noises. And guess what? That's bad. In fact, hearing loss is one of the most common health problems that soldiers face. And I actually have a couple of notes right here. According to an NBC article from 2008, nearly 70,000 out of over 1.3 million troops that served in Iraq and Afghanistan were on disability for tinnitus and more than 58,000 for hearing loss. So that's significant numbers. And to give you an idea of the noise levels that we're dealing with right here is sound pressure is generally measured in decibel. If you're not familiar with decibel, the threshold of hearing starts at 0 decibel. That's something that you cannot hear. A ticking watch would be at around 20 to 30 decibels. A vacuum cleaner ranges somewhere between 60 and 80. And hearing damage is possible starting from 85 decibels, especially with prolonged exposure. 85 decibels not going to damage your hearing immediately, but over time it may. It's also different from person to person, especially the threshold of pain is generally set at 120 decibels, but again, it varies. Some people have a slightly higher or slightly lower threshold. Moving on to firearms, caliber 22 long rifle, which is the most common type of rimfire ammunition that you'll find, is somewhere between 85 and 130 decibels. I've actually seen some people quoted at around 140 or even higher, which I'm kind of skeptical because a 9mm is at 160 decibels. And granted, 5 decibels difference can be significant already, but it still seems a bit high. But somewhere between 85 and 130, typically. A 12-gauge shotgun would be at around 150, 153 decibels on average. A caliber 223 rifle would be at about 155. A grenade would be at 160 decibels. So as you can tell, those values are significantly higher than the average pain threshold of 120. And it doesn't depend only on the sound pressure, it's also about the distance and in some cases even the angle. I know that in one shooting club where I used to be a member, they had one member who actually got hearing loss from just one shot with 22. What happened was somebody didn't notice that he had taken off his earmuffs and the guy shot at 22, and apparently it was at somewhat of a funky angle or whatever, and he actually got noticeable hearing loss from that one 22 shot, which that goes to show how easy it can be to get hearing loss. And tinnitus is also a big problem, which you can also get from loud noises. And in some ways, that's even worse than hearing loss, because if you have this constant ringing in your ears, which can be pretty loud in some cases, that just destroys your ability to concentrate, and it makes it very difficult to fall asleep and things like that. So it is really a big problem. And that's also why I say that if you're shooting any kind of firearm, I don't care if it's a quote-unquote puny 22 or a black powder rifle or a 50 caliber, whatever, doesn't matter. If you're shooting a firearm, you should be wearing hearing protection, whether it be earmuffs or at least earplugs. In some cases with the higher calibers, I would even recommend wearing earplugs plus earmuffs for extra protection. This has nothing to do with being a pussy or whatever, oh man up, and it's not that bad. No, you're stupid if you say that. Hearing loss is permanent and irreversible. If you don't care about that, you will have issues. So if you're at the shooting range firing something and you don't have any kind of ear protection whatsoever, you are dangerously ignorant at best, if not outright stupid. Very bad idea. And like I already said, movies and video games, they are pretty excessive usually. They fire a lot more shots typically than would happen even on a battlefield, you know, judging by a single person. And there are also more explosions, and they are closer to the explosions, and all kinds of things. There's plenty of stuff going on just because, you know, people want to see action. That's just how it goes. But those characters in there, they would have to be all like, huh? What are you saying? Speak up. It's, no, you shouldn't joke about that, really. It's a pretty severe problem. But, yeah, just wanted to point that out. Things that go boom may be harmful, including zombies, if you get the reference.